Yeah, I have a similar issue, or not really like an issue, just like habit with when I work and I'm checking my sales orders.
Yeah.
When I'm looking over and double checking my work, I like instinctively grab and fidget with my pen. Like if I don't have a pen in my hand to like fidget with subconsciously, I can't like properly double check my work.
The girl that I
feel like
worked with
without it.
Yeah, the girl that I worked with at the bank, I would drive her nuts with that if I had a pen nearby. I didn't even realize I had it in my hand.
Yeah.
I'd be sitting there like fucking Boris from GoldenEye, clicking my pen as I worked, yelling, "I am invincible!" for some reason.
Invincible. Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And this week, I'm going to let Ron go to intro the movie because it is his pick for the week.
We watched Circle. Hopefully you didn't watch The Circle, but we watched Circle from 2015. It does not star Emma Watson or Tom Hanks.
All right, well, we're going to need to take a 2-hour break so I can go watch the correct movie. Because I was here ready with my notes about Tom Hanks. And then, so we'll be back next week with another installment of Screenplay Rewind.
No joke, you did text me to verify before you watched it.
Yeah, because I remembered us talking about it. And I was like, pretty sure he said the one on Netflix that didn't have Emma Watson and Tom Hanks. But just to be sure, I'll go ahead and double check that.
I laughed so hard when I got that text message. I was like, oh no. Tell me you're about to watch it, not you just finished it.
It's just like looks up at the credits, starring Tom Hanks, Emma Watson, The Circle.
Oh my god! But yeah, it was available on. It still is available on Netflix at the time of this recording. And I don't know how we're going to talk about this. It's going to be an interesting episode. It's just going to things are going to happen kind of as they happen. This is a weird one. It's
First
still
and foremost. Spoiler warning, please have watched the movie. If you care about spoilers, then come back and check out the episode.
Yes. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this one.
So what I was going to say is before we get into it, I'm very curious how you stumbled across this movie because I had never heard of it until you picked it for the show.
I was looking for something to kind of turn on in the background as I was playing a game and ended up turning the game off.
Okay.
Is basically what happened. I was looking for something like, I don't know this movie. I don't know anyone in it. Seems weird. Seems like a good candidate. And I turned it on and I don't even remember what I was playing. I just remember the movie.
Probably Dark Souls.
It's probably Dark Souls. Yeah.
It's always Dark Souls.
You
can always bet on Dark Souls.
It's probably some weird mod or something.
I bet part of the reason it caught your eye is the placeholder image in Netflix for it is very evocative.
Yes.
It's the I'll let you kind of lay out the basic plot line for it, but the placeholder image is the single setting for the movie.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about something interesting about that later. I found wiki diving. But yeah, the image for it is the one setting, which is a dark room. Has a bunch of red circles on the ground, bunch of red arrows, and the black orb of doom in the center. And it every red circle has a person just standing in it facing each other towards the center.
It looks like a game show from hell.
It really does. And the interesting thing about this movie is it was apparently inspired by 1957's 12 Angry Men.
I saw that. Yeah, like I kind of get it.
My first instinct was, what the fuck? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I kind of see it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the more you think about it, the more it kind of makes sense. But initially, I was like, wait, what?
The second half of the movie is very 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's going on. You don't know where they are. You don't know why they're there. The people in the room don't know each other. They don't know why they're there. They don't know what's happening. They don't remember anything. And they the first scene, the first thing you see is these 50 people arranged in a circle doing nothing. They're like unconscious or like in a trance, but they're standing up.
Yes.
And it's very weird in itself. Like, that's already just an eerie sight. And slowly, one by one, they start waking up. And one of my, I hesitate to say favorite moments of the movie is when the rest of the people wake up all at once and start panicking and running around the room and just getting zip-zapped left and right and drop dead, because I know I am one of those people in that scene if I'm in this room.
Yeah. Real quickly though, I love the shot selection that they open the movie on, because when they're showing each of the people standing up kind of in a trance, like you were saying, it pans in a circle, so you're kind of like head level with them, and you're just panning right, and it just pans forever to show you just how many freaking people are in this room.
It's almost from the perspective of the black eye orb or whatever in the middle of the room, because it is dead center and they're all in a circle around it.
It's a great shot. And one of my very first notes is that the directors and the cinematographers, they get a lot out of this single location, like, because that's one of the elements that a lot of filmmakers are terrified of in this kind of claustrophobic of a film, as far as it just having one setting, is that, oh, we need to be kind of imaginative and fast paced with our shots, otherwise it starts to become stale, like the movie kind of loses traction. But they do such a good job of their framing and the way that they just move between close-ups and like more elongated shots where you're seeing multiple characters in the frame, and it's just like the cinematography is great.
Framing multiple characters in the frame is where they really, really nail it, because it's often important who all you're seeing simultaneously, and sometimes that person that's important that is in frame is across the room on the other side of the circle, but it's still framed in such a way that it doesn't feel like they're cheating to get people in frame, right? It doesn't feel like they're making people stand in different places to get certain people in frame. It feels like no one has moved this entire time.
Yeah. So real quickly, the directors and writers of the film are Aaron Han and Mario Mischione. Cinematographer was Zoran Popovic. So yeah, A+. This movie looks great, and I imagine it was probably fairly low budget, so they really got a lot out of their production.
The thing that I alluded to when we first started is the one production note that really just kind of blew my mind to think about was, with all these people all being filmed in one room, they literally could not film unless everyone was there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a movie that they could cheat on, because most of the time, even if they're in the same scene, actors aren't in front of each other a lot of the time. But in this movie, they had to be, because you needed to see other people's reactions to things. You needed to see them, you know, the way they reacted. You needed to see the body language, because there's a lot going on in the background of this film, even though it's just 50 people in a room. A dark room at that. There's not even any background.
One YouTube video that I highly recommend anyone who finds filmmaking techniques as far as like camera placement and the framing of characters in the foreground and the background. If anyone is like, you know, a student filmmaker, or anyone just like us who just finds it interesting, YouTube the Knives Out video with Ryan Johnson, where he is breaking down his setting up of their frames as far as which members of the family he keeps in the foreground and which members of the family he keeps in the background.
Really?
Ryan Johnson is so meticulous. He had specific sets set up to where he could have like specific family paintings in the background behind certain characters.
Oh my God.
It's just like, for a movie geek like me, it's just like crack.
I love shit like this. I love it.
I'll try to find the link and send it to you, because it's great stuff, and I love Ryan Johnson too, and Knives Out specifically. So it's
Knives
just like
so good. It's almost too good to be on this podcast.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the first, so I love another element of this movie in general, but this movie uses it to great effect. Protagonist switching.
Yes.
This movie shows you just about instantly that this movie pretty much has no protagonist, because I love how it opens up you have one dude in the room who's trying to calm everyone down, and he's like calm, cool, and collected. He's like trying to get everyone kind of, settle down there, guys. We got to work together. We got to, and he's like one of the first people to get killed.
His hair and the way he's dressed, he looks like a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, dude,
he looks like he's waiting for a symbiote to get him. But yeah, and I, just talking generally, Geoff, did you find this movie to be an interesting case study in just what it is and like the way people think and the way people do what they do and their rationale?
Yeah, this film, I love the just audacity that it has.
I know in certain places, I admit that it's predictable. In certain places, I admit that some of it's maybe not as strong as it could be when it comes to that type stuff. But the fact that it goes the places that it goes, and
without fear,
says the things that it does, yes, it puts it front and center.
This movie, like these guys, they're it's a cool little Twilight Zone-y concept of a horror thriller, but they are trying to say something. Like this is politically driven.
This is 2015. This is before everything that has happened since 2016 election. And this came out before all that, and it predicted everything.
And it's like some of the conversations and stereotypical characters that pop up.
I mean, we're talking right down to the way they're dressed. Stereotypical, right? The guy with the red suspenders, you knew exactly what archetype he was the moment you saw him in his like slacks and white button-up shirt and red suspenders, or the sweater vest guy. You knew exactly who those people were before they even talked.
We're going to talk about the sweater vest guy.
Everybody knows a sweater vest guy.
Everyone knows a sweater vest guy, but this is like the king of just fucking cunty sweater vest.
He's that uncle at Thanksgiving. That's
so what I was gonna say is that some of these stereotypes in a character points of view, I guess, would feel ham-fisted and overly stereotypical if I couldn't pull up Twitter right now and find 100 cases of each of these archetypes, because they exist.
Yes.
They're stereotypes for a reason, because some of these fucking asshole self-centered people exist, and they're just all over Twitter that I see it on a daily basis, and it makes me sad. And that's part of this movie's like statement, is like, I felt like after finishing this movie, I needed a shower.
And you watched it in 2 parts. I watched it in 1.
This movie is, with where it goes and its politically charged kind of motivations for its themes, like it's gross, but not in a bad way. It's gross in an effective way. It's very effective.
So here's something that's interesting to think about. When I first watched this movie a couple of years ago, probably before we've been entrenched in everything we've been entrenched in the last few years politically here in America,
especially this year.
When I watched it a couple, like 2, maybe 3 at most years ago, I didn't have the same reaction to it then that I had to it watching this time. And even knowing a lot of what was coming, I didn't remember just how far to the edge they took a lot of the stuff. And I actually kind of rediscovered it. This is my second time watching it.
And this was my first time watching it. And watching this movie for the first time in December of 2020. Holy fuck. Like, I'm glad I watched it, but it's
heavy.
It's brutal, dude. It's heavy, and god damn, I don't think I would have had the testicular fortitude to like go to the edges that these guys do, because they don't give a fuck who they insult. They go after everybody. It's fucking rough. But so at the beginning of the movie, you just start seeing these people just start dying, just kind of, it seems almost randomly.
So, what happens first? One of the characters that wakes up sees she's standing in a red circle. She tries to step off of it, and there's this sharp burn, like game show sound, like you kind of said earlier. The poster reminded you of like a game show from hell. It's kind of a game showy sound that buzzes when she tries to step off the circle. Then she reaches out to touch an unconscious person next to her and gets the same buzz. So you already know something is horribly not right here just from the trance everyone is in and the fact that you cannot get off of your red circle and you cannot touch the people next to you. And what happens when everyone wakes up at once is they just immediately and start running around the room panicking. And to show you what happens when you get off of your spot on the floor, literally, lightning or some form of electricity arcs out of the orb in the middle and hits people, seeming to me dead in the chest, like where the heart would be.
Yeah, like it instantly stops their heart.
Yes.
Like cardiac arrest instantly.
Yes. And people, like, it starts to kind of power up at one point during this, and then it goes down when she's, like, cooperating. But when everyone starts panicking, it powers up, and it's just arc, and people are just dropping one after the other. And did you find it disturbing when hands would go up in the air from dead people and then just whip them away, just pull them off of the floor like they're clearing the ice at a hockey game?
Because they're just surrounded by just this like pitch black that you feel like you can almost cut with a knife. And the way that they just get dragged off screen into the darkness, it could come across as funny if they hadn't just made it. It's fucking creepy the way that they just get dragged off so bizarrely.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Does they just get dragged off by their hand? It was really creepy to me.
Yeah. Did you notice, though, that as the movie goes on, the people get desensitized to it? They don't even show it. But after it happens, they'll continue their conversation, and you hear the sound effect of the body being drug off in the background.
There's one really cool shot, too, where they're arguing towards the like second half of the movie, and you see one of the bodies get dragged off at the left side of the screen by their hand into the darkness. And to your point, they just like don't react to it. And I was like, fuck, that's creepy.
Yeah, like as the movie goes on, they get more and more desensitized to what is happening. But at first, like in the first half of the movie, the first act, really, people are really upset by everything that's going on. And by the third act, they're not even noticing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's something else, man. So like you said, we have a Spider-Man villain trying to calm everyone down. And I don't remember, does he get killed seemingly by random? Is that what happened to him?
I believe, okay, so they figure out that by opening and then closing their hands after they have moved across the kind of board in front of them in a specific way and then selected somebody, they eventually, in the next like 10 minutes or so, figure out they're voting. And I think what happened with him was he was accidentally voted for and killed.
That's why I was saying seemingly, is that's what I think happened too. I like when they figure out how it works. By the way, people are dying about what, every 2 minutes, they say in the movie?
It's exactly 2 minutes. I didn't ever check it to see if because it'd be really cool if the movie was like so like specific in its timing that it like literally happened in 2 minutes. That would be fucking cool, but I don't know if that's even really possible to do.
I don't think they did that, but it certainly feels like it whenever they do. But they find out that something has been done to their hand. They have like this white ring that sometimes lights up, and if they hold out their hand and twist their hand one way, one of the arrows is on the floor that only they can see. This is lit up white, and they can direct it to point at whoever they want to, and they can move left or right. When they close their hand, it locks in their vote. But I love the moment when the guy is looking at his, it's got the white arrow, and he's leaning left and right, and they show you from his perspective that it's not like a thing that's just in his brain. From his perspective is how he can tell where the cursor is, and for no one else's perspective can see who he is voting for.
Yeah, it's like a telepathic game show.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy because as he leans out, it slowly starts fading into red, and when he leans back into center, as he goes more and more center, it changes more and more to white. So it's even like an optical thing.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, once the characters have figured out that they can have direct control over who lives and who dies with their votes, it goes from being a horror movie to a thriller based on social commentary. And the first character who is kind of, because this movie goes through a series of people who are kind of spearheading specific like cliques within the 50 people and like different mindsets. The first person I believe is the college kid. It's probably his name in the credits, because not like 99% of the characters are not given names. And they're referred to as stuff like the young girl, the oldest man, etc. Oh yeah, the college guy. Yeah, the college guy is the first person spearheading the voting, and his first kind of method that he suggested the group that people go along with is, let's kill off the senior citizens first.
Yeah, anyone, was it 70 or 80 and above?
Yes. And the level to which everyone just so casually goes along with that mindset was pretty disturbing to me, because like it makes sense in that kind of like do or die situation to go about it that way first, but it doesn't make it any less brutal when you just start seeing the senior citizens go out one by one, because they literally just start with one person and they said, we're going to start with you, and then the next selections every 2 minutes we're just going to go around clockwise, and it's just so matter-of-factly the way they go about it.
Yeah, and everyone just kind of is just okay with this kind of from the get-go, except for the senior citizens who are like, well, no, wait, I've got just as much right to live as anyone else. And I want to go ahead real fast and throw something out there. There is a story reason we're going to come to in a little bit for why the characters don't have names, because everybody pretty much agrees to not have names. So literally people's names are credited as the pregnant girl, the college guy, the lesbian, the Hispanic man, the Asian girl.
And this is in the IMDb credits.
This is IMDb credits.
This is officially basically like the way it was scripted.
Yeah, this is the way it was in the movie even. Like it's the rich man. So if we say something that sounds like it's out of left field, like, well, then the lesbian says, we're it's because that is actually the way these people are credited. And I want to throw that out there for people that are listening that have not maybe watched the movie yet. Which, go watch the movie. Don't listen to us yet. Yeah, I just want to throw that out there so you know that we're not just like being crazy or offensive.
Yeah, these are not terms that Ron or I would ever go out of our way to like designate for, just for the fuck of it. It is specifically because of the script, and plays into its themes of they're kind of examining everyone's faults, not just a specific, like a political group or, certain, demographic. They're no holds barred. Yeah. They're looking at this type of situation and going to the very edge of the earth as far as examining what people would do in the situation. And it's very effective. Like, just real quickly, like, this movie's pacing is fucking nuts. Like, because at the beginning,
it feels like it's 10 minutes long.
So the first like 20 minutes or so of the film, you're just kind of like in what the fuck mode. And then for the last hour of the movie, it is just no holds barred. Just, you're on the edge of your seat, just like trying to figure out like who's going to go next. What possible outcome could there be to this movie?
Well, I was thinking about it today, and one thing that I noticed is also both times I watched it, I'm pretty sure I said I watched it a while back the one time, but I'm pretty sure that my own reaction to what is happening in the movie is kind of matching the characters, right? So when they're in panic mode trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and how the system works and the voting works and how all of this works, I'm kind of panicking along with them. And then by the time they kind of get desensitized to someone dying and being drug off, I'm like, yeah, okay, body's gone. Now keep talking. What? Like, I'm desensitized as well at that point. And they kind of train you to react almost as if you're in the same room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because the movie, based off of the movie's inspiration of 12 Angry Men, it turns from being this sci-fi horror movie to almost like a courtroom drama for
Like-
a good hour of the movie. They're digging into people's past. They're a lot of it ends up being on your personal beliefs, your history as far as are you a criminal, and they just go after each other in really brutal ways.
Like The Cop.
Oh fuck, dude! Like,
never have I flipped faster on a character in a movie.
Yeah. So the cop recognizes one of the other people in the room as a former criminal who he arrested for beating up his girlfriend.
And again, hilarious level of stereotypes, but it works because you don't get long enough with these characters to go into their background, to go into their past, to develop any kind of recognition with them. So, they are dressed and act like full-blown stereotypes and archetypes of characters from every other movie you've ever seen. And the guy that he recognizes, which I forgot how he's credited as. He's one of them. They refer
to him as the tattooed man.
The tattooed man, yes. Cesar Garcia, I feel like, is a guy that I have seen in everything, probably playing that same role. It was in Fast and Furious.
Yeah, we should take a second to mention that because there's so many characters and because of the budget of the movie, pretty much everyone is an unknown. The only person who is somewhat known at all is Julie Benz, who plays the wife.
Oh, okay.
She was the wife in Dexter, and I believe she was in Buffy. So she's
still the wife.
Yeah.
In other things.
She was the only person that I knew for sure, because a few of them are character actors that we've seen probably in something at some point, but no one is an A-list actor because that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is just delving into their psyches.
On the surface, again, these are hilarious stereotypes, but when you stop and think about it, there's no other way that you can identify these characters with how long you have with them. So yeah, he is very, very much stereotypical gang member, the way he's dressed, the way he's tattooed, even has the teardrop, which they explain.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cop recognizes him and immediately flips the room on this guy.
Yeah, they turn people against each other just to like the matter of seconds. Like I love the ominous like counting down.
Yes.
That the whatever inside the room is like letting them know, hey, you got like 10 seconds left, and then 5 seconds, and you got 2 seconds left before this vote's gonna count. And then they get people to flip on each other in a matter of seconds, dude, and they're just gone. You're like, fuck, man. But so just to kind of give like a quick kind of rundown of like what character archetypes we're talking about. There's a soldier, there's a cop, there is a husband and wife that look like they're pulled strictly from a Dockers commercial. There's a pregnant girl. There is probably about like a 10 or 11-year-old little girl. There it's just like all these types of character archetypes. They end up really fleshing out to the extent the movie can, about probably, what do you say, like 20 of them, because a good like 5 to 10 of them are just killed in the first 5 minutes of the movie as they're just going nuts and accidentally voting and killing other people.
But it's not a waste, and it's not a waste, and it's not shock value either. Every death in here has a purpose. The ones that are just running around the room, you didn't know what would happen yet. You just had an ominous buzz when she tried to step off the spot. When everyone wakes up and starts running around the room, and you just see them all get massacred instantly for simply moving off their place in the floor, like that death has a purpose. Like every death in this has a freaking purpose, and it's insane.
One of the deaths that like I felt so bad for, almost chuckling at, is as they're about to start their rounds of voting after the senior citizens have all been killed. They're trying to figure out, hey, maybe we can try to work together to figure out a way out of this instead of just, doing weakest link and one by one killing everyone off.
You are the weakest link.
Yeah. They're like, maybe we should take a second to go around the room and introduce each other. And this poor lady who's she takes like a solid like minute of the runtime just to kind of like do what you do, you know, just kind of like
it's like it's like the first day of class at college when the professor wants you to go around and stand up and introduce yourself.
Exactly. You know, she's talking about, you know, like, oh, I have a cat, you know, I forget what, you know, she's like, you know, I'm single, like no kids, you know, I forget what her profession was. And then they start panning around the room and just like people doing that same scenario in like, you know, like a college introduction moment, they start to tune out. And she finishes her little like minute-long intro of herself, like super nice and polite. And the whole fucking room votes to kill her, dude. I was like, oh, I'm so sad for like kind of chuckling at that. Cause that's such a human moment.
Yeah.
Cause it's such a human moment because you would think like adding a name to this person and introducing her to the group would make it like more difficult for them to kill her. But like, it removes like the anonymity from the situation at the point, and they start to realize, oh, you know, she's, you know, some of the back of their mind, they don't say it specifically, but they're like, no, she's single, she doesn't have any kids, you know, she's kind of annoying, so they just fucking kill her, dude. Just
right.
Yeah.
The guy that goes next is the husband, right? And he says his name. And they're like, after they had agreed, you know, no names are better, and everyone's like, no, we don't need to know your name, and he's like, oh. Like, right, sorry.
Yes,
and continues. And like at some point in the movie, I don't remember where we get there, but they're just like, okay, so how many people here have kids? Like the people that don't have kids to go next, since we're out of like senior citizens. And they're like, well, hey, we want to have kids someday.
like, yeah. They start some of the links. And like real quickly, I just want to talk about, how does the fucking cunty sweater vest guy last like for an hour of this? Because he would have been like literally the first person I voted to kill because he's such an asshole. Like a couple of the characters in this.
How many times do you think the one-armed man voted him?
There's so many, because he is, until you get to the last couple of like more antagonistic characters, he's kind of like the driving force of, like you were saying, you know, like, how now these people don't exactly contribute to society, you know, these people don't have kids.
Oh, he was very much the stereotypical right-wing, like full on everything he could be. He was Betty White from the Steve Martin Queen Latifah Bringing Down the House. Was that it?
I haven't seen it, so I cannot say.
He was full on like her. Like he wanted to know what the pregnant lady's husband's name was and what he does for a living.
He was judging her at first for, you know, like
being a single mom.
Yeah, having the baby out of wedlock, and it's just like, dude, fuck you.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, some people contribute more to society than others.
And what's really cool is that there are audience stand-ins for people who aren't complete dipshits, and they're like, and like, you know, like the one-armed man, and one of the ladies who's the translator for the guy who can't speak English.
Yeah, I believe like, she's the one that was testing the circle and reached out to touch a person, right, at the beginning?
I believe so. Yeah. And then you have, as soon as you're in the back of your mind thinking, dude, fuck off with that, you racist piece of shit, you'll have a character on screen like, dude,
the one guy that couldn't speak English, he wanted to kill him just because he couldn't contribute to the conversation because he can't speak English.
Yeah, he literally says that. He's like, he can't contribute. He's obviously the next choice. He can't contribute. Like,
dude, what?
And when you end up finding out, like, the sweater vest dude is talking, you know, like he's this, like, you know, like God's gift to mankind, like contributing to society, you know, as like a doctor or something, you know, like someone like literally saving lives. He ends up saying he's a fucking banker. He's a loan officer.
He lends money out to people so they can live their dreams, Jeff. Yeah. He contributes to society.
And like the fact that he isn't the first fucking person voted out, I was like, bruh.
I love when he was like, I donate heavy to charities. That's easy to do when you're making six figures. Yeah. Like, some of the quips, some of the one-line quips in this movie are amazing.
Yeah, I love there's one moment towards the middle of the movie where they try to get someone else to do their I think Beth was the lady who did her introduction and then gets immediately killed. they try to get someone else to kind of like go next, introduce themselves. He's like, man, fuck no. You see what happened to her, and she didn't even say anything wrong.
And there's one lady too that literally yells, "No, I didn't say anything wrong." Like when it's a tie, and I believe it was on a tie, and it's her. She said, "But I didn't say anything wrong." It's like, is that what this is coming to?
Yeah. One brutal moment too is after they have gone through the senior citizens, they pick out who is referred to in the IMDb and the official script as the cancer lady, right?
Yes,
I believe that is what they call her.
Cancer survivor.
So there is this somewhat elderly looking woman who they fucking turn on because she says she's 52. And they're so cruel in the fact that, like, no, you're clearly 70, and she has to tell them, it's like, no, I was in chemotherapy, and then
shouldn't you be like bold?
And then they use the fact that she was a cancer survivor. One of them says, well, she's got worse of a chance at living in the long run than us, so clearly she's the next go. And you're just like, Jesus, dude, like,
yeah. I love when that one guy was like, "How do you know, lady? Are you a doctor?" As a matter of fact, I am.
Yeah, I am, asshole.
I am, asshole. Yeah. I liked her.
Yeah, there's a lot. They do a good job of
balancing the characters
out. Like good-mannered people who are not out to just save themselves with people who are assholes that do exist in real life, like the lawyer. That dude is such like a stereotype, but he fucking exists in the world. He's just this asshole corner office guy who takes every moment to just start instigating other people as votees. Like at one point, they figure out that one of the members who we talked about earlier is a lesbian, and he literally tries to instigate a vote against her because her and her wife have a daughter, and in his mind they don't have a like traditional family setup going, so he tries to get her fucking killed for that.
Like he tries to point out, like he literally says she's living in sin. Yeah. And is that a good environment to raise a daughter in with two women having sex all over the house? Is literally a line he has in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fuck him. And the people I wanted to die the most,
he's the one.
The lawyer and the sweater vest guy.
I know, me too. And they both lasted a lot longer than I wanted them to. But he's the guy when Sweater Vest wanted to take out the guy because he couldn't contribute to the conversation. He can't speak English. The red suspended lawyer guy is the one that was asked if he was here legally. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was the first time you hear him talk. I want to say he says, like, is he even here legally? Like, does he have his green card? He's probably just hanging out in front of Home Depot with like 15 other of his friends. And was it the one-armed man that says, like, dude, he's working his, if that's true, then he's working his ass off for barely minimum wage. And the sweater vest guy goes, yeah, taking American jobs.
Yeah.
What?
Fuck you guys. Jesus Christ. And I would call all of this fucking ham-fisted horse shit if I didn't see these same fucking things being said by people not trolling on Twitter. And the fact that these fucking assholes exist in real life just makes me so sad, Ron.
I know. Me too.
It makes me so sad. And it's like I like that this movie exists, and I think it's a really effective movie at its theme and everything that it tries to set out to do. But like, man, just the fact that these people exist makes me sad inside. So one thing that pops up that's important to note is at some point they have a tie-in votes. They have, what happens in this instance, like these weird gold shimmery beams of light beam down on the people.
It looks like something out of the character select screen of a video game.
Yeah, like you're picking like Chun-Li, like on the Street Fighter menu.
Yeah,
it has. So there's like these weird beams of like gold shimmery light that beam down on the characters that are stuck in a tie currently. And it seems like they have like a quicker turnaround time on how they have to like vote again to break the tie. I believe, and they realize that if nobody votes, then both the characters are killed.
Yes.
So every time there's a tie, it's a big deal because they then have to kind of like re-roll like who their votes are to make sure that both of them don't die.
Get used to the roller coaster that is the tie.
Yeah, yeah. And like the earlier on, we talked about how like we were really impressed with the cinematography. I like the fake outs they do.
Yes,
because there are a lot of instances where they zoom in on a character because most of the time the movie has set you up to get ready for the character who is being zoomed in on. Someone shown in the frame is the one getting zapped, but that ends up not being the case as they do fake outs with the camera where
now,
you hear people get zapped, but they're off screen.
Right. And one thing that I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of us on this, but I really applaud this movie for not dangling the little girl and the pregnant woman over your head the entire fucking movie.
Yes, because they also made a point of the staging of the movie as far as which characters are stationed where is really important because the little girl and the pregnant woman are standing next to each other. Their dots are next to each other in the kind of like game show set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super important because that's, you know, like everyone watching the movie, they point it out fairly quickly, but like as soon as you see it immediately, that's where your mind goes.
The husband and wife are next to each other.
Yes. And how we mentioned how they talk about his name, how he's really quickly in his introduction, he says, "Hi, my name's Craig." And then they're like, "No names. We remember we're going to keep it anonymous." He says, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry." That fucking comes into play later because they eventually figure out that they fucking set that up as a ruse.
Yep.
And
did you buy it? Did you buy into it?
I bought it.
I bought it too. The first time I watched it. When I was watching it this time, and when I watched it this time and they said they were husband and wife, I was like, "Oh, I think I remember you." But yeah, I remember buying into it.
And the way that they catch them in the lie is fucking awesome.
Right?
Because I forget what kind of clues them into. Oh, I think it's when they start realizing that's really coincidental that you guys are husband and wife and you're standing right next to each other.
Like everyone else that knew each other kind of were like across the room from each other.
Yeah. So they have the doctor and one of the other guys in the room. They were having an affair. They're across the room from each other.
No, when they said that they knew each other or whatever, and it's like, yeah, she's like a neighbor down the road, and it's like, okay, but what makes that significant? And they're like, nothing. And then the one guy was like, oh, affair, got it.
Yeah, because they say conflict. I think one of them says like, oh, they're a coworker, and the other one's like they're their neighbor because they contradicted each other. Like, oh yeah, affair,
got it.
Yeah,
it was one of the third characters in the room. That made me so. Also, moments of levity.
Yeah. Screenwriting 101. If your movie is going to be as fucking brutally heavy as this one is, you need to have a few moments of laughter, or I'm gonna just be exhausted.
Even if it's awkward laughter, that's okay. Something to relieve the tension.
Yeah, because the tension in this movie is fucking from like the minute they figure out that the voting exists to the very end of the movie, you're on the edge of your seat. If you're kind of getting invested in the movie structure at all. And so it's back to the husband and wife. So when they start grilling them after they find it really coincidental that they were standing next to each other, the way that they catch her in the lie is they ask them a series of kind of like basic questions, like, well, what's your husband's birthday? What's your daughter's name, et cetera, et cetera.
What college did your wife go to? Mm-hmm. Stuff that you could easily fake. And then I'm gonna say this, but then the lesbian turns to them and I'm going to say it that way so you know that's not just coming out of my mouth. Like I'm going to say it like I'm reading it every time. Mercy Malik
is an all-inclusive podcast, and we would not be saying these terms derogatory in any way if it wasn't literally on the IMDb page. So please.
But yes, she turns to them with, I don't know how to describe her facial expression. It's fucking great because she knows she has them by the balls when she thinks of it.
Yep.
And the look on her face when she says, "What's your husband's name?" And they
because I had
both freeze in their
too.
tracks.
I had fucking forgotten it too, dude. I was like, oh shit.
They both freeze in their tracks, and everyone in the room goes silent and turns to them. Even the people that were defending them all turn to them and like, what is your husband's name? And then, she's like, because he said it when all of this started. And I'm like, he did? What is his name? Because I don't know it.
I was so curious what it was. I literally rewinded through the movie to get to that scene just to figure out that it was Craig, because it was driving me crazy what his actual name was that he said.
But yeah. So there was a reason behind even the names, and that no names, because their rationale for no names made sense. Like, it makes it easier to off these people if you don't have a name associated with them that you're going to remember the rest of your life.
Yep.
Like, as sad or fucked up as that seems, it's different when you assign a name to a person. So that made sense. You don't even question it. And then you get to this part of the movie and you're like, oh, fuck.
I'd be very curious to...
Of course, it's Craig, by the way.
Of course.
Craig.
I'd be curious just to know how many rewrites this movie went under to, because
it had to have been written on location on set. Like, it had to have been.
Yeah, but they do have a lot of clever little tidbits like that play really importantly later on in the movie that are so like well hidden in plain sight, like that name thing that like.
And there's so much shit going on. What the fuck do you care what their names are? Like, there's a lot to unpack that's happening in front of you.
Yep. Okay. So we need to get into what ends up being the most important separation of thinking within the group that leads off into these kind of like splintered factions within the group. It kind of ends up being like a 50-50 split towards the end.
Now, is this where Lebowski starts becoming a villain type in the movie?
The bearded guy?
Yeah.
Yes. So
all I could think of was Lebowski.
I knew exactly who you were talking about. He's got long blonde hair and a big beard. So yeah, I don't blame you. So what ends up being the driving force behind this kind of like split between the room is you have half of the room who immediately are like okay. So I need to set this up. So they figure out near the same time that they can't have a tie, that they can't vote for themselves.
They test the tie, by the way.
Yeah.
The doctor and the man she's having an affair with decide to off themselves for the benefit of the group. They vote them into a tie, and then nobody votes, and they both get offed simultaneously. Yeah.
And then they also figure out that you can't vote for yourself. So what they end up figuring out towards the end is that because of the way that works, like only one person can live if one person sacrifices themselves and lets the other person go.
Right. So
there are about half the people in the room, the one-armed man,
hold on. Something just occurred to me after listening to you say it out loud. Think about how insidious it is that you can't just volunteer by voting yourself. You have to commit the act physically by stepping off of the pad.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Yeah. You don't have the power to vote for yourself. You have to actually commit to it physically on your own. You can't just say, yeah, do it, and then shut your eyes and it's over with, and let whatever is happening, the powers that be, do it. You have to do it yourself. Yeah, you have to take the plunge. One really brutal sequence is the little girl and the guy who can't speak English end up in a tie. And the guy who can't speak English, he's just like, because he can't understand what they're saying, but he gets the gist of what's happening because they have the gold shimmery lights over them. Yes. And so he just has this look of just pure disgust that they were trying to off this little girl and people could actually vote to kill this like 11-year-old girl. And he just has this look of disgust and he just steps off the pad to break the tie and let the little girl live. And it's just like, oh man. Because some of the people in the room, about half roughly towards this part of the movie, say, obviously one of the people that need to live is either the little girl because she's a 10-year-old little girl or the pregnant woman because she's pregnant. And the other half of the room is like the assholes of the bunch are like,
what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it completely equal. You know, everyone wants to live, obviously, so everyone deserves.
We don't
equal.
even know what kind of child she's gonna have. The kid could be a brat.
Yeah,
that is one of the lines echoed in the background.
That's from the sweater vest guy, right? I'm pretty sure.
I think it's either him or the lawyer. The suspenders. I think
I want to say it's the sweater vest guy because, like,
or it might have been both of them. Might have been half. Yeah, was one that I don't know.
They buddy up a lot on their just their racism and their
banker and the lawyer. What?
Right.
Also, is this? It just occurred to me too. Does the credits to this movie seem like the world's longest walked into a bar joke? The pregnant girl and Beth and the young girl and the oldest man and the tattooed man and the lawyer, the Hispanic man, all walk into a bar, like
and the lesbian all walk into a bar.
Yeah, like it's. Yeah. It just occurred to me that this is the world's longest walked into a bar joke.
Yep. So they just start getting into these like hardcore discussions where they start trying to essentially, once it breaks up into these final two kind of like splintered off factions, they start trying to trade votes. They're trying to like get people like, hey, you don't want to die, right? You know, like fuck the pregnant lady. Like and it's just like fuck, because I'm in the camp where the little girl or the pregnant woman should be one of the people to live, because I'm not a fucking scumbag of a human being. Like right. I'm so, because you wish that this argument wouldn't happen, but just because of human nature and how horrible people can be to each other, like I totally buy that some people in the room, maybe not as many as what ends up happening, but they have to have a plot.
You want to think this is the one conversation that would never come up among anyone, totally no matter how bad they are, and it's like half the room is having this conversation.
Yeah, it's rough, but I totally buy it, because I like I said, I don't think as many people would be so casually trying to kill like the little girls. Like that poor little girl ends up being in like what 5 ties as they're trying to break this kind of like this argument, you know?
Yes.
Like it's brutal.
Yeah, she becomes the target.
Yep.
Have we talked about volunteers yet?
I don't think so.
There's
so they go ahead.
Yeah, there's this moment in the movie where does the sweater vest guy the one that instigates volunteers but never volunteers himself? You would think the guy that comes up with the idea of volunteers would be the first volunteer.
I don't think he comes up with the volunteer. I think what starts the volunteers is the teenage kid. And then he starts, once someone has volunteered, then he starts instigating.
And he starts instigating, okay, who's next? Like you,
and he starts asking for more volunteers. I think it's the teenage, like 16-year-old. I think they say he's a 16-year-old kid.
That they get his name wrong.
Oh man, he's this poor 16-year-old boy he says, yeah, I guess I'll volunteer. And they're like, are you sure? And like, man, you're a fucking hero, kid. I'm gonna name my next kid after you. And as soon as he's killed himself, they get his name wrong, and it's the lawyer that does so.
Yeah, like, they get his name wrong. And I don't remember his name myself, but the one-armed guy was like, his name was whatever, asshole. Like he can at least get it right.
Like, dude, fuck the lawyer, man. Fuck him and fuck the sweater vest
I know,
guy.
but
I hate some people in this movie so much, but you're supposed to, so it works so well.
But there's a moment where the next volunteer, I believe, was she a Hispanic woman that her son was killed on in a motorcycle crash like a year ago?
Yep.
And she volunteers to off herself, and like the timer starts beeping at a certain point, and the preacher guy, was he the deacon?
The deacon, yeah,
the Dark Souls boss.
Yep.
You know, tells her that she's gonna see her son again and all this stuff, and then she steps off of the pad. Now I can see this next argument both ways. But the atheist, by the way, someone we haven't talked about yet, was one of my favorite characters just because he is such an asshole, but sometimes for the right reasons and sometimes for the wrong reasons, but he always went about it wrong. Like, you know, he's the guy with like the blonde curly hair up top and like a black leather jacket. And he acts exactly the way you expect him to act with the way he's dressed.
The way he acts and the way he looks like he just got finished killing Bruce Wayne's parents in an alley.
Yeah. See, I was thinking more like he just got finish stealing like some asshole's dog in his car, or like killing some asshole's dog in his car.
Yeah.
Like,
and what pisses off the atheist is the deacon. In the seconds before the mother's who lost her son the year before is about to commit suicide by walking off the pad. He's like she's wondering if she'll get to see her son again, and the deacon says absolutely you will.
yeah,
He's like he's genuine. I think in that last moment,
it seems genuine in the moment, but again, this is one of the arguments I can see both sides of.
Yeah,
because instantly the atheist jumps on the guy's balls and like mocks what he said, and then
like, oh, absolutely,
absolutely, and the translator she's credited as is like, she's just trying to give her some peace in her last moments, asshole. Like. And it's like, no, he's trying to save his own skin. And it's like, well, I mean, it could be the way he is trying to vote for the little girl later. But,
and then this spearheads like a 10-minute argument over religion within the room, where they start going after each other as far as they eventually turn around on the atheist dude just because of how much of an asshole he's been, as far as like just his religious debates with them.
And I said there's moments where like we haven't even talked about the guy credited as African American man, because that was a whole thing. When he is quote unquote from the lawyer playing the race card. There's a moment where the atheist guy is like, you need to shut up with this racism stuff. Okay, nobody gives a shit. And the guy's like, I'm not talking to your stupid ass. And he's like, I'm trying to fucking help you, man. Like everything that the atheist is my favorite character, because I feel like even when he means one of my favorite characters, because even when he means well, he's going about everything in such the worst way he can that he even turns people against him then. Like
what he does to get himself killed essentially is fucked up. He's standing next to
my god, that poor woman.
Yeah. So he realizes the room has turned against him and he's about to be voted out. So this like 11th hour just fucking audible he calls to try to make the room think this poor woman is a fucking porn star.
Which, what does it fucking matter?
I know, and it gets so gross. He literally makes her cry, and you're just like, fuck, dude.
And then she accidentally lets something slip where it's like she's having an affair with her boss or something, and he like lays into that.
Yeah, he's grasping for straws just to,
and he just tears her apart. And then it kind of sets it up like you don't know if it's going to be him or her, and she's the one left standing.
Yeah, they have the camera focus on her, and you're thinking for a second, it's going to be her, but then they zap the atheist off screen.
And even when you think stuff is obvious, by the way, in the back of your mind is the way things are shot, the way these characters are. Even when you think something is obvious, you still have this like little 10% of doubt about you might be wrong about what you think was the obvious move here. So it's like, I don't think they're going to kill her. There's no way. But a small part of me is like, will they? There's a lot of assholes in the room. Like,
Yep. So the real kind of like climax of the movie happens once there's about 8 people left, and you have half the people left, trying to make it to where. So the plan is for the people that are trying to save either the little girl or the pregnant woman they're trying to basically end up being one of the people in their group left with the pregnant woman and the little kid, and their plan is to vote off one of them and then sacrifice themselves, because they obviously don't think that the little girl or the pregnant woman can like bring themselves to kill the other.
Yeah, I divided up this movie in my head, and I don't know if this is the way you see it. I don't know if this is the way the script reads it. In my mind, Act 1 was just kind of claws and teeth just kind of going at each other. And then at some point it turns like it's like Act 2, like how do we save them? Do we even try to save them? Act 3, we're trying to save like one of them or try to find a loophole to save both of them if we can, something like, and that's the way I kind of divide the movie, because at some point there is a child and a pregnant woman there, and then at some point in the movie it turns towards one of them should survive. Then at one point it turns to, no, one of them is going to survive. Like, and the characters are arguing over this. That becomes the focus. So yes, that's kind of the way I divide the movie up into three acts in my own head, is by where we are in the movie is where we are in the conversation about which one of these two characters is going to live. Yep.
And the person who is doing everything he can to get votes on his side to make it to where anyone is fair game, and we're not just going to save the pregnant woman and the little girl just for the fact that they're those types of people, is the bearded man ends up being the main antagonists until a part we'll get to later is
the dude does not abide.
Yeah. So one of the craziest moments in the movie for me is when they have the 5-way tie.
Yeah.
It's this like culmination point where they have a 5-way tie in votes with the bearded man. I think is it the wife, the bearded man, the cancer survivor, the soldier, and I cannot remember who else was in it.
Oh, fuck, we haven't talked about the soldier. That's where I was going with the volunteer stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to take a second to talk about the soldier?
So the reason I brought up volunteers earlier was how rapidly the room turned on the soldier.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
The soldier was one of the main guys trying to legit save one of these people. Like, he realizes kind of what's happening. He wants to live. He's on the side of like, no, he's against the lawyer. He's against the sweater vest guy. He's against them. Like, no, this is stupid. You can't. This is your own biases doing this. And then we get into volunteers, and these people start offering themselves as volunteers. And at one point, he looks around, and the whole room is staring at him. And he's wearing the like standard army like camo like jumpsuit thing, so it's obvious who and what he is. And I think it says U.S. Marines on the corner of it. And everyone's just staring at him. He's like, "What?" And then after it dawns on him, he's like, "Well, oh, you think it should be me next? You think I should step forward and volunteer?" And nobody says a word. You can hear a pin drop. There's not even any music hardly in this movie, Jeff. So it's just silence. And then you start kind of hearing the countdown. And then he's just like, no. He's like, He's like, I have an 8-month-old daughter. He's like, I've never met her. He's like, I was on my way to see my family. He's like, I just finished, like, what was it, like 2 tours in Iraq or something. And he's like,
I think he said he had just spent 2 years in Afghanistan, and he just got back home.
He's going to see his family. He's got an 8-month-old kid he's never seen before. He's going to see his wife. He's like, no. He's like, I want to live. Da 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 da. And everyone's just staring at him. And they all voted him, right?
I think he ended up in I cannot remember.
But he ended up in a tie.
I don't think they vote for him in that moment, but just the simple fact that the room just goes so quiet and everyone's looking at him, that made my heart sink, because it sucks.
Because it was him and the one-armed man for a while fighting for everyone.
Yeah.
One-armed man, by the way, I don't know if I already said it, is my favorite character in this thing, I think.
Yeah, he seems to be like the person.
He was like the first one to figure out that none of them was walking out of there except for one person early on, and accepted that from like the get-go.
So they end up in the 4 or 5 person tie, and it's in a really crazy moment. The only person that ends up walking out of it is the bearded man, and you're just like, shit, because they just lost almost all the people that gave them the majority to save either the pregnant woman or the little girl. And I think at this point the one-armed man has been killed. So there's a character named Eric who is spearheading the kind of justification of, we need to make sure either the little girl or the pregnant woman is the one to walk out of here alive. And they end up in a really crazy kind of twist on the votes, is they start trading people. They start like saying, I'll give you this person if you give me that person. We'll consider that a fair trade, because they end up when the bearded guy casually trades away sweater vest guy. It's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because the sweater vest guy just goes in immediate defense mode of like, well, he's trying to like just start trying to like as he does, he tries to bullshit his way into being
him
one
and
of the
his
survivors.
7 children.
yeah. That's like one of them. It's like, yeah, I got 12.
So before we off the sweater vest guy, by the way, because I think that's coming up, right?
Yep.
Remember the dude that's credited as African American man, the guy that was quote unquote playing the race card. One of the most painful moments in the movie for me is when he flips and sides with the sweater vest guy, who was literally trying to kill him moments before in the movie because of like racial stereotypes, like he's on welfare and all this other stuff, when we don't even know that is the case, and is most likely probably not the case. And there's a moment in the movie where this guy wants to live so bad he flips and sides with sweater vest, and sweater vest like, yes, when it happens. I just like,
yep.
I was like, oh god, what the fuck, man.
I hate that guy so much, dude. By the way, like that sweater vest guy is a great actor, because
I know
he plays that slimy fucking character so perfectly. I hated him so much, but in real life he's probably just like the nicest dude.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely sure. It's kind of like he kind of falls in the same category as Joffrey.
Yeah,
like if I ever met that kid in real life and he's like, hi, and like wanted to shake my hand, I'd probably just punch him. And there's nothing wrong with the guy.
Oh no, he's like one of the most genuine human beings on the planet. Like he like literally runs a charity, and yeah, he's a great dude.
But I just want to punch him because he played that role so well.
Yeah, he owned it. He owned it so well. Yeah.
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 I wouldn't actually punch him. I wouldn't put that out there. But like, I mean, every time I watch Batman Begins, I'm like, okay, Batman, you need to break your one rule right now. I've seen what this kid grows into.
Yeah. You could save so many people, Batman.
And a periscope. I'm sure that thing's not cheap.
Yeah, it's man, it gets pretty heartbreaking when people just start casually going on the team equality. Let's like, dude, we need to that's too much responsibility for a little girl, so let's just fucking kill her. It's like, dude, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It's like I said earlier, like when this movie was over, I wanted to go take a fucking bath in Purell for like 45 minutes.
Like that moment on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart when he just like turned and was just pumping Purell straight into his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the character we mentioned, his name was Eric. He starts to spearhead after the one arm man, I should say.
The one man army.
Yeah, the one man army goes up against the 7 Nation army.
We're gonna just start calling him Kurt Connors.
Okay, that works too. Yeah, so he turns into a lizard in the third act, just twists out of nowhere.
Who's apparently impervious to lightning.
Yep. So it takes out the aliens in this just crazy Twilight Zone twist in the third act. No,
I don't even think we've mentioned that yet. I don't even think we've mentioned that someone brought this might be aliens and how fast the room bought into it.
Yeah, because like, what the fuck else could it be?
Right.
Like, oh, and that ties in too with part of what they talk shit on the soldier, because they're like, clearly you know what's going on because you're a soldier,
right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was
number one rule as a soldier. Usually everything is need to know. So no,
yeah.
he would know his mission, and his mission was get home and see his fucking kid for the first time.
Yeah. Man, this movie, it's a thing. It's a fucking thing, dude.
Jeff and I had a long conversation about, like, I guess it wasn't that long. It probably took place over a long period of time through text message, but it was just like, I don't know how to talk about this movie. The structure is 50 people in a room. So
talking nonstop.
Like, so you see how we're jumping around the movie. Like, if you've watched this movie, you understand why we're at odds with how to begin talking about this thing.
Yeah, because it's fucking rapid fire. rapid fire. So, you know, like we're going to talk about racism for 5 minutes. We're going to talk about, you know, homophobia for 10 minutes.
Right.
And it's just all these like heavy themes. And it feels like it feels like when you finish the movie, it feels like you've survived a fucking boxing match. Like shit. Okay. So when the way that they start trading people is kind of awesome because of the way that they use it against the bearded guy.
Yes.
Like his the way he goes out is awesome. So Eric, it comes down to about 5 or 6 of them, and the Eric guy who is ostensibly trying to save either the little girl or the pregnant woman agrees to trade. I think he agrees to
the silent man.
the beard. Yeah. Okay, but real quick aside. I thought the silent man was one of the aliens. Was that your read?
Really?
On the movie? Because my read of the movie is I noticed pretty early on, about halfway through, that guy wasn't talking or engaging with the voting at all. So what my initial like view on like what I thought the twist would be is the silent man was one of the aliens being a first-hand observer of the game.
I could see that being like maybe an initial script idea and that was scrubbed. But
yes,
because I think it would cheapen the movie if that was true.
Because that was just immediately where my brain went when he wasn't engaging at all. But what they end up saying is that he's just what he never talks at all, and Eric realizes he's never voted once. So the
thing that happens before that is at one point Lebowski turns to him, he's like, huh, you with me? And the guy just gives him like this fuck off look and doesn't say anything, and he's just like,
he's not reacting to anything. He never reacts to anything.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, he's like, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Okay, he's with me, and moves on. And that's where it's like The Witcher. Like he made a mistake however long ago, but he doesn't realize the mistake he's made until it's too late to go back and like reload his save. That's a thing in The Witcher. You know, you find out 3 hours later that decision you made was bad.
Yep.
So yeah, he earlier in the movie at least, he's just like, okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. So he's with me. And then now fast forward to here where he has made an assumption, whereas Eric has made an observation.
Mm-hmm.
And uses this opportunity to trade with him to use that assumption against him. It's not so much using the guy against him. You know, he's the vehicle for what's happening, but he knows that, you know, Lebowski has made this assumption and turns it on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they realize they've done this kind of like trade, and Lebowski thinks he's you know, getting like a good trade in his favor, and then Eric has given the pregnant woman a look that kind of like signals, no, fuck that, you know what to do type of look.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You know what to do, and she catches it.
They vote for Lebowski, and Lebowski notices what's going to happen at like the last second, and as soon as he gets that, I was like, yes. Because like he turns into a cunt, dude. Like he ends up being just as despicable as the sweater vest dude and the lawyer.
Yes.
They're just so fucking selfish, dude. Like
I know, it's so crazy. And then you know, when the timer starts ticking again, the guy, the silent man, I think he's credited as the guy that has never responded, never voted or anything. They talk about him for a minute and like how, you know, he noticed he hasn't done any of these things. And he's like, I think he just doesn't want to give them what they want. And like the guy's just staring into the orb.
Yeah. His quote is something along the lines of, he's not, you know, he just doesn't want to give them anything at all. We've given them enough. I think that's pretty close to his quote.
And when the timer starts down again, she's like, well, what do we do now? And he's like, well, like he knows what we have to do. He understands. And that's when the silent man like turns and looks at him. And it's like, I don't think that was his plan at all, bro. Like, I think now you're making assumptions. Because he kind of whips his head to Eric. And yeah, then they vote him and the silent man goes down. And I think this is one of the moments also where it kind of cuts in a way where you just see his feet get drug off. Like you don't see anything else.
Yeah, that the way that they frame some of the people getting dragged off, I found legitimately unnerving.
You're gonna have to talk about this next part. I don't know that I can.
Okay, real quickly, I actually need to pause for a second to go to the bathroom because if we're gonna get into this, I want to be able to not just want the conversation immediately because I need to go pee. So I'll be right back.
Oh, you know.
Pausing my recording.
All right. Why? Look funky? Why? Tell me. Yeah, trust me. Feels like a mess. I almost asked you to watch this. Oh God, it's a thing. Only a thing. Make a list of movies. So I can use the show to get him to watch Skyscraper. Not using enough podcast.
Okay, I'm back.
Okie doke.
Okay, I'm starting my recording back up.
We are approaching the hour and a half mark.
Yep. I think we'll be wrapping it up in probably like 15 minutes or so.
That's kind of what I was thinking. No, we're basically at the end of the movie now.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So let's talk about the way the movie ends. Holy fuck.
Did you see this coming before we get into it? Did you see this coming at all? Had you been fooled?
I saw it coming like 20 seconds before it happens. And I was at first, because I was like, oh no, is this going to go there? Because the movie is so dark.
Yes.
And so heavy that, and the directors and writers just could not give less of a fuck about how brutal the movie is. I was like, oh, this is going to end dark. So the last people alive are Eric, the little girl, and the pregnant woman. And you think you're going to have this kind of like potentially, it's obviously going to be bittersweet because only one of them can walk out, but it's at least to an extent a happy ending to the best of the circumstances that were presented, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, Eric is talking to them. He's kind of like walking him through, you know, he's like, they end up deciding they're going to let the pregnant woman live, and it's decided by the little girl. The little girl says like, you know, like, I'll go. I think that's what she says.
Yeah.
Because she looks over at the, you know, like the pregnant belly of the woman, and you know, the little, like, and Eric is, you know, kind of like talking him through like the game plan about how this is going to work, you know, like you know, he's gonna like what is his situation that he sets up to where in order for the pregnant woman to be the one that is left alive, both Eric and the little girl have to walk off their squares at the same time? I think is that what it ends up saying?
That's the loophole. They have to, if they step off simultaneously, it'll kill them both simultaneously and just leave the pregnant woman.
Yes.
That no votes are cast or anything. They just step off.
Yeah.
But they have to do it together at the right moment.
And like we talked about earlier, the game communicates with them when the vote's going to happen, because you hear this like sound effect, like it doesn't have like a literal countdown.
It's not quite as stressful as the Sonic the Hedgehog drowning music.
Pretty close though.
But especially in this moment, it's pretty close. And like, as it ticks down and time's running out, it goes faster and faster and faster. And
yeah,
oh my god, dude. The editing in this movie, by the way, as they are getting ready to take their steps off and time is kind of down and Eric is yelling at the little girl, now, do it now, there's no time left. You see her pivot her body weight forward to the point of no return, and the second her foot starts to go towards the ground, you see Eric cast his vote to the pregnant lady. And the look on the little girl's face as she realizes what he's done as her foot touches outside the circle. And then you hear the two zaps, and it's just Eric standing.
It's haunting,
man.
The
pregnant lady is dead, and the little girl is dead. And he's just there by himself. And he has this moment where he's like celebrating it. Like he doesn't even care about what just happened. Like he's just like, yeah, all right. I did it.
It's so sociopathic, dude.
Dude, the guy figured out 2 loopholes and used them both to great effect. And
yeah.
And I love the moment he's sitting there and it just keeps being quiet in the room and nothing is happening. And he goes from like celebrating to, oh yeah, well fuck you, to the black orb in the center of the room.
Yep.
And then the tie marker.
Oh, dude.
Did you see the tie coming? He's the only person standing in the room.
Dude.
And he lights up.
So fucked up.
And the camera pans. And the other person he's caught in a tie with is the woman's belly.
And you hear a heartbeat sound effect. This movie, dude.
So there was 51 people in the room.
Shit, dude.
And that's kind of his reaction, is just like, huh, all right. And the baby, because it drives home the point also that the baby is totally defenseless. It can't cast a vote.
And he just does it. He just casts a vote. He does it so nonchalantly too, dude. Like,
it's just kind of, just has this look on his face like, oh, of course.
He's like, they had a fucking psychopath in the room the whole time, because the whole movie he's one of the people spearheading the effort to save either the girl or the woman,
It reminded me so much of Topher Grace in Predators.
Yeah.
When it has that serial killer turn, because you could see him being there because he was a doctor. Then it turns out no, he was there because he was a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
It had
that nonchalant coldness to it.
Yes, even his character's demeanor seemed very similar to me to the way Topher Grace acted. I didn't put any of this together until after, when I was thinking about it. The closest thing I could equate it to is his behavior and the way he acts and everything is very much like that, and then he just turns on his heels. And he casts his vote, obviously, because he wakes up on the ground in what I believe to be LA.
Yeah.
And this is something I definitely didn't see coming. But because I didn't know what to expect once we got out. At this point, I've seen and heard so much that I just don't even know anymore at this point. And he gets up and he walks over, he finds like a group of people, a small group of people, and they're looking up in the air, and when the camera pans up, there's just all of these circular spaceships orbiting above LA, and they're all circular, and they all have the same triangular markings, and they all have like this black ball hovering in the center of them. And it looks just like the room they were in, but floating above them. And there's many of them all over the place. And the thing that I don't understand is he then just kind of looks down at the people around him, and then it goes to credits. What is that inferring going through the character's head? Like, are they all like him? Is that what he's thinking? These are all
Okay.
people that have survived it and they're just as bad as he is, or is he just going to eat them? Like what? What is that signifying?
So what's interesting to me is that what ostensibly ends up happening, and you don't know the motivations behind it as far as like why the aliens are doing this, but like what you end up having is a population on Earth that's going to be populated with
Psychopaths,
sociopaths, or you're going to have one-off scenarios occasionally where it's a genuinely like good person, like one group, you know, happened to, you know, you let a kid go, or you know, like, so you have like what, probably like 75% sociopaths, 25%, you know, like normal good people that deserve to make it out, you know, like in our circle situation that we see, you know, like if the little girl, you know, for instance, had made it out, or the pregnant woman, you know.
Can you imagine? Could you imagine that? Probably infers, if everybody's chosen at random, that there were circles out there that had like 6 kids in them.
Yeah. Or, I don't know if you thought about this yet, but the entire time, the pregnant woman, if they had gone through the plan and Eric wasn't a sociopath, in order for the pregnant woman to win the game, she would have had to cast a vote towards her unborn child, because she ended up, the baby ended up qualifying for a tie.
Jesus.
So when they, if the plan had gone through the way Eric made it out like it was going to, where Eric and the little girl killed themselves and let it be up to the pregnant woman, that's the scenario she would have faced if that had been where they went.
What do you think happens? What do you think happens to the room if they had killed her earlier in the movie like they wanted to, and then the body doesn't disappear, and like, you know, the unborn infant is just still in play?
Yep. So the only real good outcome that could have happened from the circle that we see is for the little girl to have been the one to make it out. Because
so even if the pregnant lady commits suicide, the unborn child is still in play. Well, there's no scenario that you don't have to vote her twice.
Yeah. This movie's fucking, like, when I made that connection in my brain, that like, even if it was going to be a dark ending, even if, you know, Eric wasn't a fucking psychopath, like, bravo to the writers, because this movie doesn't give a fuck. It's ballsy. It's so ballsy. I respect the hell out of the people who made this movie. What's interesting too is like the guy who plays Eric is actually one of the producers, and actually was.
I was going to ask you if any of these people were any of the directors or writers.
Yeah, Eric is one of the main producers. He liked the TV web, or it actually wasn't a TV show, it was a web series that the writer-director combo did called The Vault. That is also based not in a sci-fi way, but it's also about a game show, like with dark like undertones behind it, just like this, just without a sci-fi bend. So yeah, I actually don't like the ending of them going away from the circle. I don't think the movie ever should have left the room. I wish the movie had ended after Eric had quote unquote won and been the last one standing.
It just go to credits and the screen goes black and then you hear the zap and then its credits roll.
No, I think the best way to have ended it, to me, is he's basically like, he thinks he's won and he's going to get to go, but he just starts calling out to the aliens, you know, like, hey, like, I've won, you know, like, what, like, when do I get to leave? And he's just, nothing ever happens, and you just realize he's stuck there until he eventually has to, you know, step off and die.
Step off and die. I have a question.
I don't like them going to the surface and seeing the alien ships, but that's just me. I think just
that felt to me like I was that's the thing I've been thinking about the most since I watched it, and the only thing I can come up with is that is the only way to explain not only how bizarre the situation, but like the technology in play.
I don't think you need to explain it, though.
I don't think you need to either.
I think it was much cooler when I didn't know that they were just in spaceships above LA.
Feels like? You know what putting random spaceships in it feels like to me? It feels like a Cloverfield like spin-off movie. like the God particle was.
No. Like the best spinoff it should have been is they just show Aaron Eckhart show up in a fucking army jeep and it's just Battle LA 2 and he just starts like fucking up the aliens, dude. Yeah, that's a movie I'd watch.
Who's to say it's not the same timeline?
True.
But yeah, no. I have a question for you. In the reception category on the Wikipedia,
okay,
someone apparently is quoted as saying, while the film's attempt to address social problems are beautifully done, leaving a bit of uncertainty in the end would have made a stronger finale. The fuck are they referring to? I'm not certain about anything that happened in this movie beginning to end.
I think they're talking about leaving the ship and just confirming that they were in alien ships the whole time. Because if they had just ended without ever leaving the room...
But we still don't know why. We don't know how. We don't know when. We don't know anything about what happened except the where. That's all we know. A spaceship in LA.
It's just they are confirming it as aliens. They are confirming it as like multiple circles. I don't know. I personally think they shouldn't have had the last scene, but that's just me.
Is it the aliens from Persei Omicron 8 or whatever from Futurama just playing a game show?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know. I still I don't like them having that little epilogue moment of showing Eric back on Earth, but I still really like the movie overall. And I thought the ending was that the ending twist was pretty fucking awesome. Like it's so dark and so ballsy that I couldn't help but like it.
Yeah, to me the ending I want to see is the one that I described, where he has that of course moment, and then just the screen go black and you just hear that sound effect, and then credits scroll is where I think it should have ended.
Yeah,
you don't know what happens. All you know is he won. You don't know what his prize is. You don't know if he gets to go home. You don't know anything. There's no aliens. I'm not against the idea of aliens, but
or another thing, another possibility that along the way through the movie that popped into my head that I thought would have been potentially pretty cool is that since they ostensibly get killed, but they're not killed viciously, like there's still a chance, like you don't know what happened to them exactly, like they could have just been zapped into being unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been kind of cool if everyone who got voted out
all woke up at the same time.
They all get to live, and the person who dies is the last person standing. I thought that would have been kind of cool because of the way that they show them getting zapped and not, like
I thought there was going to be a chance that this was a simulation, like they're all strapped into chairs with VR headsets or something.
Yeah,
and I didn't know it or whatever. I didn't know what it was going to be. I'm not against the idea of aliens in anything, but it just seems weird to leap to aliens and not explain anything. I would buy into a simulation more, and then like everyone knows who the asshole is.
I just
and then Rip Torn comes out and admits like Eric into the Men in Black or something. Like I don't know.
No, that's a movie. Just a psychopath in the Men in Black. Right. I'd watch that.
But yeah,
I think either having it happen completely ambiguously off screen, like you said, like where you don't know if he won and got to go home or if he got killed. I know it was just a mind fuck. Or my idea of it being the last person standing is the one to die. My idea of like it being, yeah, you won, but you just get to stand there until you eventually, either from hunger or just out of like, that you're fucked, you just step up and kill yourself. And, no one ever had a chance of getting out.
What happens if someone dies of natural causes in the room, you think?
I don't know.
Because, I mean, if the child is unborn, and this is really fucked up, okay, but how does it change if the child is unborn, right, but its vote still kind of count? Well, okay, you have the loophole in of the tie. I got you. I've answered my own question. So, because my thing was like, it takes like what, 4-5 minutes to suffocate to death, and that's essentially what's happening to the child, but they kill someone every 2 minutes. Like, they say that strangling someone is always first-degree murder because you have like 4 or 5 minutes to release them, to not go through with it. And if the child is unborn, it's not breathing on its own. If the mom's not breathing, the child's not breathing. So he can't just like wait it out and never have voted, because the child will survive more than 2 minutes, because it'll be 2 minutes before it comes back around and does the tie and then kills them both. So, like, if he's going to survive that moment, he has to vote.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, the movie tries to have its cake and eat it, too, by having it be an ambiguous thing while also confirming that it was aliens. It should have been one or the other. They should have confirmed it and then explained it more, or not explained anything, and you just never leave the circle room. And but by kind of like hedging their bets, I think they made the ending weaker. But the twist is what nails the ending. Really, is just that Eric is a fucking psychopath, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's kind of cool. This is a movie that, like, I feel like would be a pick of mine. So watching the movie, I was like, this does not feel like a Ron movie, just because it's such a bizarre little Twilight Zone-y type of.
Well, I mean, I love Twilight Zone, and it does feel very Twilight Zone. So, it's like I said, it's not one that I intended to watch per se. I was just looking for something I didn't know with people I didn't know in it to put on kind of in the background. And that's how I started. And the thing I ended up turning off was whatever game I was playing, because it just sucked me in. You know, we're criticizing the ending, but in my opinion, it's still, compared to everything else in the movie, is kind of a nitpick almost. Because the rest of the movie is just so well done. There is nowhere, Jeff, no way that this movie on paper should ever have gotten made. Like, this movie, you can't explain this movie. You know, and I brought it up to you for a while after I watched it. So I'm like, Jeff, you need to watch it. But I can't say anything to you to get you to watch it, because if I can't say anything without spoiling it, and I can't say anything that just makes it sound dumb. Like, there's nothing I can say to explain this movie to you other than you will like it. And anyone that has ever recommended you anything in their life ends their pitch with "you will like it." So, like, what? I don't know how to get you to watch this movie.
I'm happy you stumbled upon it and put it on the show, because it is something that is up my alley. I that's why I opened up the show with, like, I figured it had to be some type of, like, happy accident that you stumbled upon it, because it is, you know, like, typically the obscure, somewhat horror thriller that's Twilight Zone-y are the movies that Jeff would pick, and not the Ron one. So that's why I was.
It had to have been like half the thumbnail was the reason that I that I turned it on, right? Because I know nothing about this movie, and that was kind of the goal. I think Netflix has it listed as like science fiction or whatever. I'm into science fiction, and you know, just kind of it was just like, I'm going to turn something on. I don't want it to be like Lord of the Rings. I'm going to put down whatever I'm doing to watch Lord of the Rings. I needed something I wasn't that familiar with, didn't care too much
just
about.
Just background noise. Yeah. And it is, you know, it's background noise. It's tackling, you know, homophobic and racism and all these fun topics. And you know,
background noise.
you know. Yeah,
all
that.
That's my ASMR when I go to sleep every night.
you know, child murder, you know, what you just you know, you snooze to as you're about to get, you know,
that little girl, I still see her face in my mind when she realizes what Eric's done.
It's
brutal.
It's heartbreaking. It's haunting. It's like fuck.
But I am so happy that you liked it. I think that's a weird thing to say considering what this movie is, but
I am glad that I watched it.
Never watch it again.
I will never watch it again, and I still think I might need to take a shower before I go to bed tonight.
Oh man, and you never shower. That's strange. That's a real sign of how this movie affected you.
I think the last time I showered, like, this before that whole COVID thing was a thing. You know, like, you never know.
I haven't showered since March.
Did you find any additional? So the only tidbit behind the scenes stuff that I found that I thought was cool, that Eric was a producer. He kind of was a focal point on how the movie got made, because he stumbled upon their web series, The Vault, and they kind of had this idea that he liked the pitch for, and he helped to get made. I thought that was kind of cool. But did you find any other tidbits in the behind the scenes and production that you wanted to share before we?
None that we haven't already talked about. I'm just sitting here with the image of the spaceships hovering above LA in my mind, while looking at the words, the script was inspired by 12 Angry Men.
Because if there's anything that 12 Angry Men is known for, it's child murder.
12 Angry Men screams Independence Day to me.
Do you want Independence Day with a psychopath? Because I do. Here's Circle.
Well, it had Randy Quaid.
Here's Circle, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Watson.
America's Dad and Hermione.
Yep.
Hermione.
So if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it out to your friends. If you have any questions for Ron and myself that you might like to have answered on the show, please email us at screenplayrewind.com. We would love at gmail.com. We would love to read your emails. And we don't have a website yet, but maybe someday.
Maybe.
Who knows? So please reach out to us, through the email if you have any questions or, just overall thoughts. Let us know. Did you watch Circle and also want to shower yourself in Purell immediately? Because I know I do. And follow us on Twitter at SPR Filmcast for show updates.
I love it. I love the Twitter handle so much.
Always remember the unfortunate backstory.
See episode 0. And leave us a rating on iTunes and a comment. Be honest in your ratings and your comments, but it is the easiest way that you can help us out. It affects the way YouTube shows us to people.
Yep, and
YouTube?
Anchor and Spotify, all the things.
It affects the way iTunes shows us to people. I jumped from iTunes to YouTube somehow.
They're the same thing when you squint your eyes. It's fine. But yeah, I'm impressed. We're actually back on a 1-episode special, so that's kind of cool. I like how it's like a special event when we don't have a 2-parter. Yeah, it'll never happen again.
It'll never happen again.
So you have a full 2 weeks to check out our next movie, and this was Ron. So my pick is going to be, drumroll, the first entry in Screenplay Rewind that's not a horror movie at all.
Coming out right before Christmas. Yeah, shockingly, we're no longer doing horror for at least a brief moment of time. Logan Lucky is my pick for the next one. That's been on my list.
Ron and I both love our Twilight Zone-y horror movies, but another type of movie we both love are heist movies.
Yes.
And I fucking love heist movies, and I love Logan Lucky. I've been wanting to get, it's been on my short list of movies to make Ron sit through and finally get around to watching. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, that's been on my list for a while, and you brought it up to me every time I talked to you for a couple of weeks, probably, and I never got to it. So yeah, I'm excited then.
Yes.
The perfect holiday movie.
Yeah, Logan Lucky. Yeah, the fucking heist movie for the Home for the Holidays for the heist movie. So you can find Logan Lucky. It is currently streaming if you have Amazon Prime Video. It's in both 4K and HD.
Ooh.
So I'm excited to revisit it. Get to watch it a little 4K on Amazon. So yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I hope you like it, Ron, and check back with us in 2 weeks.
As always, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Dude, I've never flipped so hard on a character like I did the cop, because when he starts being racist and stereotyping all the black people in the room.
Yeah, we didn't even get a chance to talk about how he got killed because he just went on a fucking anti-modern socialistic America rant.
Yes, and the look on everyone's face in the room as they look at him, and you hear all of the votes being cast.
Yup.
Those are the one thing that most of the room actually decided on together.
Yup.
Was he had to go.